Up for the absolute ultimate financial showdown. We're taking two undisputed heavyweights of wealth building and we're putting them head to head: real estate and the stock market. We hear these debates constantly, right? But today we're totally stripping away the hype and we're going to run the real, unvarnished math together.
It's the age-old question, isn't it? If you've managed to scrape together a solid chunk of savings, you have probably agonized over exactly this. Do you buy a property or do you put it in the market? Everyone's got an opinion. Usually the person who bought property thinks they made the smart play, while the person sitting in index funds thinks they have it all figured out. But the truth is, when people do the napkin math on these investments, they're almost always wrong.
And why are they wrong? Well, because they miss two completely crucial hidden variables. The real estate investor almost always forgets to count the hours, and the stock investor always forgets to count the zeros. We're going to map these exact numbers over a 20-year horizon today, and I got to tell you, the actual gap between perception and reality might just make your stomach drop.
Okay, let's dive into part one, the $50,000 starting line.
To make this a perfect scientific control, let's look at two guys, Jake and Marcus. They're the same age, live in the same city, earn the same $55,000 salary, and they both have exactly $50,000 saved up. Jake takes his $50,000 and uses it as a 20% down payment on a $250,000 rental property, just a modest 3-bedroom house. With a 30-year mortgage at 7%, his monthly payment is $1,330. Now he finds a tenant paying $1,800 a month, leaving him $470 a month in paper profit. He feels like an absolute mogul. Marcus, on the other hand, takes his $50,000, drops it into a total stock market index fund, automates a $300 monthly contribution, and basically goes back to sleep. Nobody is impressed. While Jake is driving past his brand new property, Marcus just has an invisible brokerage account and a boring confirmation email.
Which brings us to part two, the landlord reality check.
For the first couple of years, Jake is living the landlord dream, while Marcus just watches a little number wiggle around on a screen. But let's fast forward to year 3. Jake has collected roughly $64,800 in rent against $47,880 in mortgage payments. Simple math leaves him with $16,920 in gross cash flow. Sounds incredible, right? I mean, this is the number you see on the YouTube thumbnails. This is the number he brags about at the neighborhood barbecue.
But here is the stomach drop moment. Jake's actual net cash flow over those 3 years, the actual money he gets to keep in his pocket, is really somewhere around $2,000 to $4,000. It's nowhere close to $16,000.
Because you see, that rent check is really just a starting point before reality takes a massive bite out of it. Properties sit vacant about 1 month a year on average, and that's a full mortgage payment out of pocket with zero income. Maintenance runs 1% to 2% of the property value annually. We're not just talking about a $200 leaky faucet, we're talking about a $7,000 HVAC replacement hitting right in the dead of August with a very angry tenant threatening to leave. Add in $5,000 to $15,000 chunks for CAPEX, things like aging roofs and water heaters, plus another 8% to 10% for property management, or alternatively, an unpaid part-time job filled with 10 p.m. emergency calls and weekend showings.
So by year 5, Jake is deep in the trenches of being a landlord. He's already on his 3rd tenant, he's had to replace the roof for $8,500, deal with a $1,400 plumbing emergency. He's managed to raise the rent, sure, but guess what? Property taxes and insurance went right up with it. When you factor in all of these incredibly real expenses, his actual cash-on-cash return has dropped to hovering around just 3% to 5%. It's a far cry from that 15% to 20% return he originally told all his friends about.
Let's switch gears and look at part 3, the quiet power of compounding.
While Jake is out there dealing with plumbing emergencies, what is Marcus doing? Absolutely nothing. Let's track his journey over a decade, assuming a roughly 10% average annual return with those $300 monthly deposits. Year 1, he's at $55,000. By year 3, $76,000. But then, by year 7, the math curve actually bends, pushing him past $135,000. And by year 10, his portfolio hits roughly $180,000. And remember, he hasn't picked a single stock or fixed a single roof. His gains are just silently generating more gains.
So the really crucial point here is understanding the totally different financial mechanics at play. Jake is relying heavily on leverage. He used $50,000 to control a $250,000 asset using the bank's money to his advantage. Now, to be fair, that leverage actually helped him stay slightly ahead in overall wealth during those first 10 years, even with all the crazy expenses. But it requires constant attention. Marcus, on the other hand, is relying on compounding. It is painfully boring for the first 5 years, but it becomes absolutely astonishing over the next 15.
And that leads us perfectly into part 4, the 20-year finish line. After 2 full decades of completely different lifestyles, wildly different workloads, and very different types of stress, the grand reveal is staggering. Jake's property is appreciated, his mortgage is nearly paid off, and that leaves his final equity sitting between $400,000 and $500,000. Marcus's portfolio, fueled just by his original $50,000 and $122,000 in slow monthly drip contributions, has exploded to roughly $460,000. Despite Jake taking on hundreds of thousands in debt and hundreds of hours of unpaid labor, they literally end up in the exact same net worth ballpark. Crazy, right?
The difference in their journeys really boils down to this beautifully simple idea. Jake worked for his, and Marcus waited for his. Jake took on massive concentration risk by tying everything up in a single zip code, and he literally traded his free time for equity. Marcus traded cash flow for total liquidity, a full night's sleep, and pure freedom. And oh, here's a wild caveat for you. If Marcus had just bumped his monthly contribution by an extra $200, his portfolio would jump to nearly $600,000. For Jake to scale his investment like that, he'd have to go out, take a whole new mortgage, and literally double his workload.
All right, let's wrap this up with part 5, pros, cons, and caveats.
Look, any objective explainer has to look at the whole board here. It's not about declaring a single winner for everyone. It's really about choosing your hard. And stocks have very real, gut-wrenching risks. The volatility's brutal. We're talking a 37% drop in 2008 and a 34% drop in a single month in 2020. That kind of drop causes intense panic selling behavior. Plus, index funds just don't give you income replacement. A 2% dividend yield on $150,000 is barely $200 a month. And fundamentally, you have absolutely zero leverage. You buy exactly what you can afford and nothing more.
Conversely, real estate definitely outperforms stocks in some very specific, identifiable situations. It wins when you use that 5-to-1 leverage effectively. It wins in markets with a really strong rent-to-price ratio, meaning your monthly rent is at least 0.8 to 1% of the purchase price. It offers absolutely incredible legal tax shelters, like deducting the theoretical depreciation of a building that's actually going up in value in the real world. And if you employ strategies like house hacking to eliminate your own housing costs or execute 1031 exchanges to roll your profits into new properties completely tax-free, well, those are incredible advantages that everyday stock investors just don't have access to.
So, what's the big takeaway for us here? It's that neither path is inherently wrong. Real estate isn't bad at all, it's just really misunderstood. The real trap is picking a path based on a flashy YouTube headline, some internet influencer, or something your uncle confidently told you at Thanksgiving without ever actually sitting down and running the full honest math for your own specific situation.
So the next time someone tells you that real estate always wins or that the stock market always wins, I want you to ask them one simple question. Did you include everything? Because when it comes to your financial future, the answer that includes everything is the only one that actually matters.